Hey everyone, how are you today? So in this video we are going to go over how to mix a value thread and oil paint. So for class, this is for my painting one tutorial for my painting one class. In class we are going to do a value step scale and also a value gradation scale of values 1 through 9. So before we can even do that, we need to at least pre-mix our color and get a thread of color, or at least a thread of a gradation scale down. So not so much color, we're thinking about values. And so I've already have a value video, but I decided to redo this video for my painting one class that's dealing with oil. I don't want my students to get confused with oils and acrylics and some of the terminology and vocabulary. So this is definitely geared towards more so oil painting students. All right, you guys. So just a little refresher on that. So the one thing that we definitely we're going to need our titanium white. We're also going to need our ivory black. So you might need a lot of this for mixing. So I tend to pre-mix all my colors before I start to paint, or all my values before I start to paint, because it saves time for me, and then I don't have to worry too much about what I'm mixing. So I have one hand that has gloves because I don't want to get too much paint on myself. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I want to get at least some titanium white down, as well as I want to get another another blob of titanium white down, because I need to get a value 5, and I might mix a lot of this because I have to use a lot of it. And then also I need to get my ivory black. So I'll put that here. So if you look at how I'm setting up my palette, you always want to have your white on one side of the palette, and also you want to have your black on the other side of the palette. You kind of want this range for mixing. That's very important to have just some space for mixing. So as of right now, like I said, I need to get a value 5. So I kind of want to have 50-50 black and 50-50 white. So I'm just squeezing out just about the same amount, hopefully close amount, and I'll see if it's a value 5 or not. So you guys, as I said in class, as you can see, I'm mixing. My palette is in my Stay Wet pen. So you could definitely leave your palette in your Stay Wet pen. You can mix and do whatever you need to do within your Stay Wet pen. So you guys, I have my trusty palette knife that's here. So what I want to do is I want to mix this because I need to get a value 5. So my palette, because I also have gray paper under this palette, my palette is close to a value 5, so I know if I'm mixing and the actual paint is looking close to what I'm actually seeing, then I know that's a value 5. So it could range a little bit darker or a little bit lighter. You just don't want to go too dark, because then you're moving into a value 6. So now that I have this mixture together, like I said, I just want to mix everything just to get the right amount of a value 5. So mixing. And the reason why I have so much, because I'm going to use this mixture a lot. So I just need to make sure I get an exact value 5. And as you can see, I need a little bit more white. So I'm going to go ahead and put that down. And I'm okay if I have a lot, because I'm going to need a lot. So we're looking about a value 5-ish. I still want to get just a little bit lighter. Just a little bit, not a whole lot, because I think we're kind of in a really good ballpark for it. So I'm just going to add a little bit more white to that. And roughly it's about 50-50. I know we're using ivory black, so it really just depends on how strong your titanium white is when it comes to tinting. But you want to make sure you get those values in. Alright, so I think we're fairly close with that value 5. So I'm going to scrape because I want to get a ball. Scrape, I want to get a ball on my my palette knife. So I'm going to scrape again, get a ball on my palette knife. Also get a ball on my palette knife. So I know you guys are like, Jury, you have a lot of value 5 paint. Trust, I'm going to need it. Because I'm going to use it to mix other values. So I'm scraping this off, scraping it off. I want to get enough of this down as possible. So I have it. I want to clean off my palette knife as well as my palette. If I cannot knock over my paper towels. So I'm just going to wipe this off. There you go. So I have that. So now that I have this, what I want to actually do is kind of want to move this over because I'm going to need some space. So I'm just going to move it over here and move this over here. And then I'm going to wipe this off for right now. Alright guys, so now we have our white, we have our value 5, we have our value 9, because 1 is our white, 5 is our in-between, so that means we mix about roughly 50% of our titanium white and our ivory black to get this mixture. I think my ivory black was a little bit of a, either it might have been a heavy shading or my titanium white is not as strong as I thought it would be with that 50-50. But now we got about a value 5. I think we're about there. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my darker values. So I'm going to take half of this. That's here. And I'm probably going to have to get a little bit more of my ivory black. So I've got about half. And I might, what I might do. Let's do this. Get about half of this. Because you want to mix like an in-between the black. So I'm mixing an in-between. You want to make sure that all of your values have their own identities. That's important. So when you look at your values and you're like, okay, nothing is looking like each other, you want to make sure that they have their own identities. They're going to be similar, but not exact. So you want to think about, they're going to be kind of not brothers and sisters to each other, they're going to be cousins to each other. Something like that nature. Alright, so I have that down. I'm going to wipe this off again. Clean that off. So I'm just going to move my black down just a bit for right now. I can always move it out the way. So now I have a my value 5. So We need a 5, 6. This is my possibly my 7. And then we're going to need an 8 and a 9. So that means I need to mix this and this to get my value 6. I'm going to take some more of this so you can see why I made such a big blob of that, because I'm probably going to have to remix it. Then I'm going to take a bit of this, hopefully about the same amount is what I'm trying to go for. And then we're going to mix them together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scoot this over just a bit. I want to make sure I'm making room for my value 6. And I want to check to make sure that they're looking quite different. And I can always add, I know this looks different from that, but I can always add a little bit more black to that one, which I might do. Just a little bit, not a lot. Just to give it its own identity. But as you can see, I'm scraping, putting it down, scraping, putting it down, scraping, putting it down. Putting it down. Then I'm going to wipe this off. So I want to make sure my palette is clean before I mix anything else. So now I'm looking, I have value 5. I also have my 6, I have my 7. Now I'm going to mix 7 and 9 to get my 8. So I'm going to take a little bit of, possibly half of this right now. Then I'm going to take half of this. Probably not as much, probably a little bit less than I have, because I want it to be dark, but I don't want it to be as dark as my value 9. So I'm going to put this down. I mean, normally you want to make sure everything is evened out. I kind of lost that, but it's fine. I'm going to put this here. Once again, I'm going to wipe out, clean this off. And I have my 9 here. So I want to make sure I'm comparing, which this looks about an 8 and that looks about a 9, which is, it looks very black. I just want to kind of clean off my palette just a bit. Alright. So now that we have that, I can add in just a little bit of my black, because now, guess what? I have all of my values for my dark mask ready to roll. So we have value 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Now we need to get, this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So just like we did with our black, we're going to add our white. I'm actually just going to squeeze out some white here. Squeeze out just a little bit more. I'm going to take half of this. Probably not that much, but about half of that. They look about the same amount. If I need to add more white, I probably will. So looking at them, just kind of comparing it looks light, but I feel like I can get it a little bit lighter. So I'm going to add a little bit more white to it. Because right now we're mixing value 3. Sorry, we have value 3. Get my numbers together. So this is feeling about a value 3. It's lighter than my value 5. So I'm going to scrape it. So I want to get a ball on my palette so I can put it down. So ball here. This ball in. Scrape up the paint. Scrape, scrape. Ball, put down. Scrape. Scrape and scrape. And scrape. Ball, put down. Scrape. Ball, put down. Scrape and put down. So as of right now, I have my value 3 in. So you can see where we're going with this. Alright, so now that I have my value 3 in, I need to get my value 2. So that means I'm going to mix my white and my value 1, which is my white, and my value 3 to get 2. And then I'll mix value 3 and 5 to get 4. So that's going to get us our value range. So I'm just going to add a little bit more white so I'm not pulling too much from my white. And then I'm going to get just about, I'm going to scoop up about half of what I'm seeing, and we're going to mix them together. So I'm just going to, pull my palette knife to my value 3. And I do see a good distance, and I do see a different identity with this color and with this value, and also my value 3. So I think we're in a good spot. Can I make it a little lighter? I probably can. So I'm going to just mix just a little bit more, not a whole lot. Just a little bit. You don't want too much of, you want to jump, but not too much a jump from a white. Alright, so I have my value 2 mixed and ready to go. One thing I definitely want to do, just going to move this over just a bit. Make sure I have some room. So once again, I'm scraping with the tip of my palette knife. Scrape, scrape, ball, put down, scrape, scrape, ball, put down. Clean off my palette knife. I don't want to get any other colors or values mixed in. Cleaning off my palette. You want to make sure you're keeping a clean palette as much as you can. There's going to be time when it's going to get messy and dirty. But you just want to make sure you're thinking about keeping a clean palette. Then next thing we're going to do is, once again, we're going to mix value 3. Because remember, we got 1, 2, 3. We're going to mix value 3 with value 5. So I'm going to take a little bit of that value 3. I'm going to take a close to the same amount for the value 5. And we're going to mix them together. So I kind of want to put it next to my value 3 and 5, which for me, I don't see much of a difference. So I'm going to add just a little bit of black to it, and I might add a little bit of black to my value 5 as well, because I want them to have their own identity. So if I'm looking, I do feel like this is darker than this value 3. So that means I'm going to have to tweak this just a little bit, but I don't want this to be darker than that. So I'm scraping, getting the ball, putting it down, scraping, getting the ball, putting it down, scraping, getting the ball, putting it down, put it down. Clean off my palette knife. Clean off my palette area where I'm mixing. Alright, so now I need to grab this. Remember, I want to make it just a bit darker. Like I said, I'm just going to grab a little bit of black. I don't want to grab too much because guess what? I don't want this to become that color. Because that means I'm going to have to tweak everything. So I'm just trying to add just a little bit just to darken it up just a little bit. And I'm looking. It's just a tad bit lighter. But I know it's about darker than this. Now I'm comparing, I'm looking, I'm like, they're about the same color or the same value, so I'm going to add a little bit more black, which I might have to tweak some things that are next to it. Once again, just a little bit. I don't want to add too much. So I'm just kind of comparing. And I feel like, from what I can see, not so much in the camera, but for what I can see in person, it is darker than that 4. So I'm going to add just a little bit, just a tad bit of black to that to tweak that. Which I am looking, this is still darker than that, and that's just a tad bit darker than that. Alright guys, let me clean out my palette. And another thing, you guys, I didn't talk to you guys about this, but this is a scraper. If you have a glass palette, you get a paint scraper almost anywhere. You could definitely, I think I may have bought this from the Dollar Tree, but you can find these. These are really good for work. So there's a blade that you put in it, and it retracts, and then it also comes out. So I can scrape down just a little bit more of my palette just to make sure that paint is off. Another thing that you can do is, of course, you can wipe out, and also you can use your solvent to just kind of like wipe your palette as well to make sure that it's clean and all the residue of the paint is off. So you guys, this is what we use to get our 9 value scale in. So we have our value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And we started with white and black. We got our value 5. For our light mask values, we got we mixed our white and our value 5 to get 3. 3, and value 1 to get 2, and then value 5, value 3 to get 4. Same thing for our dark mass, values in our dark mass. We have our value 9 and 5. We mix that to get 7. And then 5 and 7 to get 6. And then 7 and 9 to get 8. So that is how you mix a thread for your value scale. And also we're going to be doing this week grisaille. So some of these mixtures you probably will be able to keep for our class on Thursday. So this is what you need to do ahead of time. So in the next clip, I'm going to go over painting a value step scale as well as painting a gradation scale. So I'll see you guys in the next clip. Hey everyone, so in this quick tutorial, it's mainly going to be about doing our values. So we've already pre-mixed our values, so it's mainly just placing values where you need them in the space. So in class, we're going to do a step value scale. So you're going to have value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then you also want to do a gradation scale. So the gradation scale is where you're gradually getting to that from white to black. If you look at my setup and my format, so I definitely want you guys to pay attention to this if you can. And I'll go over it as well. And I also have a photo with example of how I put this together. But so to get my bands, basically I measured 1 inch down, 1 inch in, 1 inch in. Same thing here. I measured in 1 inch up, 1 inch in, 1 inch in. Okay. The band is an inch tall, and it is actually 7/8 wide. So this box is an inch tall, 7/8 wide, 7/8 wide, 7/8 wide, 7/8 wide. And that should give you about 9 boxes. Your last box may be a lot bigger, but because this band is about 8 inches and we're trying to squeeze in 9 value steps, but that pretty much worked out for me. So once again, 1 inch down, 1 inch in, 1 inch in, 1 inch up, 1 inch in, 1 inch in. And then to get each box within the value scale, remember this band is 1 inch tall, and then the width of this one box is 7/8. 1 inch tall, 7/8. 1 inch tall, 7/8. So you kind of get the drift of how to get these little bands that are in here. So they might be fairly faint, and I'll try and get a pencil really fast because I'm looking in the camera, and although I can see them, they are reading fairly faint. So I'm going to try and darken them in for you just a bit so you can see. And you want to use a ruler. I know I'm coming in freehand, but I did use a ruler to start with. So that's important. You don't want to just freehand it because you're like, Jerry, you freehanded on your video. I only freehanded it because I'm just trying to darken the lines that I already have that I drew in with a ruler. And I am going outside of that. Thank you for an eraser. So they should be still reading. They probably still reading a little bit faint, but this kind of gives you an idea. So some students get confused and have gotten confused in the past. This band, you don't need to have your boxes. Remember, this is a gradation scale. We're just going to gradate from white to dark. So all the transitions are going to blend together. So what you're going to need, of course, is your pre-mixed palette with your pre-mixed values or your strand of values. So I have mine on the side. You don't see all of my values because the camera just isn't fitting all in, and I can probably, no, it's not going to work. It's not going to fit all the way in within the camera. But you kind of get an idea that they are beside me. You're going to need your Gamsol. So I have my little Gamsol container. I still got my cover on my Gamsol, because you just want to make sure that you're not getting too many fumes in your studio. You may need a palette knife, you may not. I just have it near me just in case. Normally when my paints are already pre-mixed, I'm mixing with my paintbrush. So what I have, because this is what I like to use, I love using rounds. So I have round brushes, as well as I have a bright. So bright are short flats, and I also have a flat brush that are that is a fairly small. So it's a number 4. So I'm going to use these brushes to get this down. I love blending with rounds. I don't know, something about it. You can blend with your brights or your flats or even filberts, which a filbert is basically this. A filbert is a flat, but it has a rounded tip. So it's kind of like a cross between a round and a flat, but these are really cool to paint with as well. Alright guys, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So once again, now that I have my step scale in, I want to start with painting my first key, and then I'm going to move all the way through. Because I've already have it pre-mixed, this should move fairly quick. I'm also going to do my gradation scale, and then if I can in the video, I'll try and do a time lapse of this. That way it's not moving too slow, and it's moving quite faster than what it needs to be. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to get quiet so I can do my time lapse. Alright guys, so now this is our in-class assignment. So we are going to get our 9-step value scale in. We also going to get a gradation value scale in. So remember, the gradation value scale, you're gradating all of these colors. So we're going to slowly transition from white to value 2 gray, value 3 gray, value 4 gray, value 5, 6, 7, and 8, and 9, until we get to black. So white to black, slowly gradate. So you're blending these colors together to get that gradation. And the step value scale is, you see different identities. So we have value 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And you want to make sure each individual one has their own identity. And you are not gradating these. You're just painting in the squatch of paint. So hopefully this helped. This is going to be our in-class assignment. Once again, we're doing grisaille this week, so kind of getting an idea how to mix our paint, mix a thread of a value scale that's in for our grayscale, get an idea of how to get a value key step scale, value step scale, as well as a gradation scale in. All of this is going to help us for our grisaille assignment in class. So I will see you guys in the next video, which is going to be a demo of how to paint one object in grisaille, meaning it's a chromatic painting. It's just black and white. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.